Cash is king, which means your cash flow needs to be working really well. You can be strategic about cash flow, or you can be willy-nilly about it. I recommend the former, obviously, and today's guest agrees. He helps his clients with their accounting, practice management, and cash flow, among other things, and he's going to help us understand how to make your cash flow strategies effective. I'm Carl White, principal at Mark Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of Practice Care. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. It's usually what they want anyway, but care is better when the providers own the practice, because then all the clinical decisions, all the business decisions can be made by the same person or group of people. Sometimes one affects the other. It's just better when the providers are making those calls, because the patients will always come first. Today, my guest is Joe Lessard. Joe is a partner at Professional Business Management, a healthcare practice management and accounting firm in the Northwest Chicago suburbs. Joe's been with PBM since 2009 and a principal since 2020. He's attained designations as a certified public accountant, health practice advisor, and as a certified healthcare business consultant. He believes in rolling up his sleeves and is usually on site visiting his clients' operations firsthand. Joe is responsible for all accounting and payroll services, as well as personal and business tax returns for his clients. He helps them review operations and day-to-day aspects such as HR, employee benefits, retirement plans, collections, billing, and patient interactions. Every client has different needs, and that's why Joe's commitment to his clients' needs and his customer service is what he prides himself on. Joe is a returning guest. Thank you, Joe, for coming back on Practice Care.
As always, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And before we get into it, I just want to hear a bit more about you, about the firm. There aren't a huge number of firms that go so deep into one vertical the way you guys do. So tell us a bit more about you guys.
Yeah, I guess the history of our firm. We've been doing this for a very long time. Our firm's been around since 1932, which is.
And anybody who's watching this on YouTube, Joe is 97 years. No, I'm kidding. You look great. Keep going.
I have found the fountain of youth.
Yeah.
We've been around for a very long time, and that's healthcare has been our thing, and only been our thing. We are one of the founding members of a national organization, kind of three societies of consultants helped form what's now the National Society of Certified Healthcare Business Consultants. So we go back a long time and really just helping our clients stay private. I've been with the firm now since 2019. So yes, not since 1932, but right. Long enough time to see what's going on in the industry. And the industry in healthcare has certainly changed. With private equity and the hospitals and the groups and the government, for lack of a better phrase, just have gotten involved, and it provides more consulting opportunities for us and more of a need for our clients to really focus on how to run their practice.
You said 2009. Did you mean 2009 or 2019?
2000. Yeah. See, 2009. See,
9.
Oh, yes, 2009.
Too many numbers.
It'll be 16 years in June.
Wow. There you go.
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So we're talking about cash flow today and cash flow strategies. One of the things that strikes me, and this is not unique to a medical or dental practice, but it strikes me that watching cash flow maybe is a bit more challenging, because it's like hundreds and hundreds of relatively small transactions for the most part. You can have little leaks all over the place, and any individual one would be hard to spot, but before you know it, there's a cash flow problem that just makes it more, so what kind of mistakes, before we get into how do you make it good, what kind of mistakes do you see?
Well, I'll tell you about a client I went to today, new clients of ours. And he came to us because he's nearing retirement. He wants to make sure that when he does go to sell his practice, that he can optimize his value. And he feels that his value is worth more than what the offers that he's getting. And he knows why. And it's because that his bottom line number doesn't look as good as it should.
Okay.
And so, after doing some digging and on his end, this is before he even became a client, he realized that his office manager was, for lack of a better phrase, embezzling money.
Oh my God.
And, paying for things that were for her, like her own health insurance, like her husband's health insurance premium, which she was getting paid through the practice.
For how
Keep in
many
mind,
years?
keep in- they haven't gone through
Oh
any
boy.
forensic accounting, nor have I, obviously.
Okay.
But again, keep in mind, this person's husband is not an employee. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's lots of stuff like that. And from what I'm told, and
Hmm.
again, uh, it's all about internal controls
Hmm.
and separation of duties.
Hmm.
I find a lot of clients are really good clinically,
Hmm.
but from a business standpoint, they're not.
Yeah. So
And
embezzlement,
that's not a
theft.
knock on them. It's just they don't get taught that in school.
Yeah. Yeah, we both talk about that a lot is a trillion years learning how to treat us, but not a second's worth. And it's sad. I mean, it makes me angry.
Yeah.
Just about every medical school, probably dental school. I mean, not only do they sort of not utter the word business or finance or cash flow or anything, but some of them just kind of look down their nose on it, and you're not helping anybody. You're just not helping anybody. So theft, embezzlement, yes, terrible for cash flow. What else do you see? Like, so maybe more, hopefully those are
Yeah.
rarer examples.
Hopefully those are rare.
Yeah.
But make if you do a job, you should get paid for the job, right? I mean,
Sounds reasonable.
yeah, I mean, collecting a time of service, I can never say that loud enough. Give me
Hmm.
every megaphone possible, any platform, and I will. It's
Yeah.
usually one of the first things I ever tell any client
Yeah.
is because you do a job, you perform a service, you should collect for that service at the
Hmm.
highest value of that service.
Hmm.
And the best way to do that is to collect at the time of service.
Hmm.
And oftentimes people view collecting money as a form of confrontation,
Hmm.
and it really shouldn't be. It
Hmm.
really shouldn't be. And
Hmm.
I don't know why it's that way in healthcare. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Again, you go. I'm my wife's car is in the shop right now. Well,
Hmm.
I know before I get it back, I'm going to have to pay for that service,
Yeah. Or you don't get the
or turn
car.
down the service altogether. But either way, I have to at least pay for the estimate.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Why is that so different in healthcare? And I have no idea.
I think part of it, for whether I'm right or wrong on this is where sort of insurance doesn't help, is very philosophical. Here in our country, I believe we haven't decided yet if healthcare is a right or a good. And that's way too much for us to solve here, but it creates this sort of gray area. Plus, what's covered, what's not. Um, what's my patient responsibility going to be? Every once in a while, I will call up for myself. I need an MRI, and I'll call up our health plan. I'll say, what's my out of pocket going to be? I'm on hold for 20 minutes because they have to run a pretend claim. And then it changes depending where. So it's just like, what's it going to be and how much and why does it cost that much? And it's too much. And to your point, but nevertheless, Dr. X, um, seems to me if you communicate these things clearly up front, true, not everyone's going to remember it, but you could say, look, we talked about this. You signed your name to this. And now the treatment's done. You have to pay now. Um, I agree with you.
I think you hit nail on the head though too. Is insurance complicates it. It's a very beneficial thing for patients, but it complicates it because you don't
Hmm.
know how much your responsibility as a patient it truly is
Hmm.
until Dr. X is billed. Insurance has said, nope, you can't bill this. You're going to bill this,
Yeah.
and because you haven't met your deductible, patient, you are responsible for this, and
Yeah.
we're going to pay Dr. X this. It gets way too confusing.
And you're not going to hear about it for 4 to 6 weeks because that's how long it takes us to tell
If you're
anybody
lucky. Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, nevertheless, communicating, there's a patient responsibility. And can you collect like an estimated amount and then
Yeah.
just, you can do that too? Like
Yeah.
just so you can
Yeah.
collect faster?
Yeah. I think to the extent that you have your practice set up to pre-authorize or pre-estimate the bill, the patient's responsibility, you absolutely can collect that. And
Hmm.
that's what I encourage.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because again, my tooth hurts. I'm more willing to pay you when I see you and you fix that problem.
Hmm.
And what by the time that claim gets submitted, insurance pays. Now it's 2 months later, and
Yeah.
the pain doesn't feel as painful. And
Yeah.
so I'm not as eager to pay you.
Yeah. I know. Then you're chasing down payments and the person's gone. And yeah, a different client yesterday, she told me this one client of hers, she's owed like $5,000. And this is a form of speech therapy. So it's not all one treatment. It's over
Ah,
a
jeez.
long, long time. And, you know, the most she could do is say, I'm not going to see your kid anymore, but that doesn't recover the $5,000. And it's just, collecting it at the time. Totally agree. Um, what's another strategy or mistake and then the solution that you maybe more commonly see?
I think truly reviewing what you're spending money on. It sounds so
Mhm.
simple, right?
Yeah.
Um, healthcare practices, there's a lot of cool toys. There's, some get enticed by the new shiny lasers or whatever, and
Hmm.
or do they need to go and spend that $1 million to do a build out? Well, no, you don't need to go that route yet. Maybe you can scale it back and do it in stages. It may cost
Yep.
you more in the long run, but why incur the cost well in advance that you need than you need to and it's
Yep.
just being empty?
Yep.
It's really taking a good look of how much you need to spend.
Hmm.
And a lot of doctors are very bad with that because they have money and money solves all problems, right?
Right.
But that usually creates more problems. It's the thought of having all this money. And so you then are fiscally irresponsible and spend more money than you probably need to.
Right.
So again, it's just taking a look at what you're spending money on.
Hmm.
It sounds simple,
Yep.
and really evaluating, do you need to?
Yep. And then I'll add to that, and this I think could apply to maybe some practice management, some more like the software. Um, Usually sometimes they're month to month, but sometimes you can get a bit of a discount if you'll pay for the year all at once. And those can add up. I don't think it's going to be the savior, but since we're talking about every nook and cranny here that we can uncover. So yeah, what are you spending money on every year? What are you spending money on? Is it working? Did we use that? Maybe there's some subscription or something that when's the last time we even used that? Um,
Yeah. And
get rid of it.
people are afraid of change. And
Hmm.
that fear allows them or has them stuck in paying for a certain thing.
Hmm.
For example, the biggest one is real estate.
Hmm.
You are fearful that you have no negotiating power as a tenant, for example, and you have so much power
Hmm.
to negotiate to negotiate your lease
Hmm.
for a lesser square footage,
Hmm.
or B, you negotiate some sort of allowance for improvements from
Hmm.
the landlord,
Hmm.
or C, go elsewhere and negotiate those same exact things.
Hmm.
Gordon, don't feel stuck in the location you're at whatever contract you're at. There's always ways to negotiate that.
Hmm.
And I think getting involved, getting a real estate broker who knows healthcare is
Yep.
crucial. Again, in your industry is
Yep.
crucial because they're able to provide, as Carl, our Logan is provide deeper insights.
Hmm.
We're able to do that because we know the industry.
Hmm. Yes. And probably this is what I've been told about that. Your second biggest cost line item is your real estate. Certainly
Yep.
top five. And yeah, right. If your lease is coming up in 24 months, first of all, you should know when your lease is coming up.
Mhm.
And if it's within 24 months, find yourself a good, experienced healthcare real estate agent, broker, tenant representative, and just start having a look around because your lease goes up. You're right, and that doesn't mean it's still the market rate. Landlords want to make money. And the fun fact is that if you use one of these people, the landlord pays their fees. So you, as the tenant, just reap the benefits. You don't have
Yeah,
to
it's
pay
free.
anything out
It's
of
free to
pocket.
you.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you? Um, let's keep going. Something you and I have talked about in the past is let's take, just scheduling appointments. Like how many people who should get their teeth cleaned every, twice a year end up doing it? They want to, but things slip away, right? And if the appointment's not scheduled, the revenue is not collected. So, um, talk more about that one.
Yeah, so I'll pick on dentistry here, but it really applies to any practice that has some sort of reoccurring visitation, right?
Hmm.
Whether that's therapy or that's physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, counseling,
Hmm.
dentistry for hygiene,
Hmm.
anything that requires kind of an ongoing
Hmm.
relationship, ongoing appointments. You better have a system in place where you are scheduling their next one, at least if it's like for dentistry, it's hygiene, right? You're scheduling that next hygiene cleaning in 6 months before that patient leaves.
Before they leaves, because they're
And
gone forever.
yeah, because so in dentistry, in general dentistry, every patient should have an appointment on the books.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
That doesn't happen as much as it should.
I know.
And with therapy, uh, it should, again, you are scheduling the next three out
Hmm.
because I don't next week, the next 3 weeks are already accounted for, right? So I
Hmm.
can't schedule something next week because I'm already busy.
Hmm.
You have to schedule 3 weeks out in advance. So then it's a kind of a rolling 3 month or 3 week
Yeah.
appointment every single
Yep.
time.
Yep.
And it's so important to have
Hmm.
have a method for you to schedule it before they leave, because
Yep.
then it just keeps that cash flow coming.
Yeah. I'll give you a good story than a bad story. So my favorite little story is our family dentist. Go to get hygiene, that's done. There's 2 or 3 minutes between the end of that and when the dentist comes in to kind of have a look. And the hygienist's like, want to schedule your next one? Yes, I do. That's fantastic. And the added benefit is that the front desk doesn't have to get involved now because they're doing other stuff. It's really efficient. I
Yep.
like that, and the bad example is I go to an allergist, supposed to go once a year. Can't go less than once a year, the insurance, unless I want to
Mhm.
pay for it myself. But the allergist's appointment or calendar doesn't look out 12 months ahead. So when I wanted to schedule before I left, they said, we can't tell you when she's available. Why not? Her appointment book only looks 6 months out. Who said that? The practice manager. Why? I'd like to schedule it now. Oh my God. Like, why are you making this? This is the stupidest thing to make difficult. And so have your availability show to whatever the cadence is supposed to be. And yeah, so that's a bad example. Don't make things difficult to schedule.
Yep.
Yeah.
Speaking of making things difficult, uh, make sure people can pay you. And even schedule kind of piggybacking off the schedule thing, but having the ability to schedule without having to physically call is
Yeah.
a huge benefit.
Yeah.
Having the ability to pay your bill online
Hmm.
and scheduling online and paying online,
Hmm.
huge benefit.
Hmm.
As a professional, I'm busy throughout the entire day. And
Hmm.
so for me to even think about my personal stuff it's very hard to do it during the day. And so I don't my mind doesn't switch on to the personal stuff until I get home. And it's like, okay, I got all the laundry list of stuff I have to do.
Hmm.
I just pay bills or schedule these or follow these.
Hmm.
You can't call people at eight
No.
o'clock at night and schedule things.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the ability to pay online or schedule online, you're not getting paid either,
Yeah.
right? And because how many people write checks to pay bills anymore? Not that many. Banks don't even issue checks anymore. You have to
Yeah.
try to get them.
Yeah.
So again, make it as convenient
Yeah.
patients to schedule and pay you.
Yeah. And the tech's out there and it's safe and it's secure and it's easy. And you got to remember, listeners, we're being compared not to the competitor next door, but to those who make this really easy. Like pick your online retailer of choice, that makes this super duper easy to do. Those of us who have to go through all these hoops to do the same thing with you wonder, how come it's so hard with you? When it's not. And here's the other thing, a lot of your competition is also difficult. So if you make it easy, you're really going to start to stand out because your clinical experience, you're supposed to be good at that. That's not a differentiator. It's not the differentiator you would like it to be. Now, there's an exception if you're first to market with some new sort of surgical trick. I don't even know what, but for the most part, you're already supposed to be good at what you do clinically. The rest of the patient experience is where you can differentiate and just think about what's difficult and how do we make it easier. Scheduling and paying, start there.
Yeah.
Just start there because people like Joe and I, 9, 10 o'clock is when we get to our stuff because there's the work day, then there's the family time. It's just, The way I used to say it is now it's 10 o'clock at night. My kids are in bed. Now I can do all this sort of stupid stuff that's necessary.
Yeah.
But I can't call you. So yeah, that's a really good one. And then, if there's like a course of treatment, kind of like you were saying before. So let's say you've got physical therapy and you're supposed to go for 12 or 13 or whatever, think, why don't you schedule them all at once? Just get them in there. You can always reschedule, but
Yeah.
just lock them in. Don't,
Yeah.
well, we'll get you next time. It's not going to happen,
No.
and eventually I'll come back, but it'll be 3 weeks. You could have had 3 appointments in 3 weeks,
Yep.
appointment revenue examples in 3 weeks. Yeah. What other examples? Anything else like big kind of?
Again, just looking at what it's kind of cash flow management. Again, when you think of that, is collecting what you're supposed to collect, increases cash. Spending less, right? You can't, it's money in, money out, right? And if you are reviewing your expenses, you've negotiated rates with vendors, right? So don't just take things at face value. There's potentially negotiating power. And the more you're buying, the cheaper you can get your price per item, right?
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah.
Your biggest cost will be staffing, rent, and depending on your specialty, your malpractice insurance. Those are your biggest costs.
Yeah.
So the rest of it is kind of, there's not, even if you were to negotiate some things, you're not going to get a whole lot of return on it. But those are your biggest things, and the staffing, there's only so much you can do with that because the market dictates that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rent, we talked about malpractice. You can take, some educational things, which you can then reduce your risk profile to reduce your premium. And again, negotiating with your vendors.
Yeah.
I think I also view this as an opportunity to review what services you are providing patients. Are you utilizing are you fully utilizing your patient outcome? So what I mean by that is you have 3 exam rooms. You have 2 providers and a doctor, for example, like nurse practitioners. Is everybody's appointment slot fully booked? Or are there big gaps? Right? Because now you're paying that provider usually the same amount of salary.
Yeah.
But you are not seeing as many patients.
Yeah.
Well, what's the easiest way to increase? If you fill those patients, you are not, let's go straight to the bottom line, because you are not increasing your overhead in any way.
Yeah.
Right. So if you making sure your each provider is fully utilized, fully booked. And then also looking at what services you are providing patients. Is there an opportunity to do further treatment plan to get them to commit to those treatments? Or are there treatments that you are referring out because you can't do those? Well, maybe it requires additional schooling, or maybe it requires you to, if you can't do it because the schooling, depending on what it is too onerous.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you bring in a provider.
Yeah.
You pay them a slightly lesser percentage than what they would get paid as a business owner elsewhere. Now you are able to get that, and they're happy because it's dollar for dollar for them versus money goes into their practice. They now have to employ people.
Right.
Right. So there's an opportunity for you to provide more services in your practice without even having to go to school, extra school.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice. And so are you offering all the services that you reasonably could? Another one, we both know a couple of providers that do the services that offer this. It's sort of an advanced one, but look at just the layout of your office. So here's the logic. Let's say that a typical appointment time is 10 or 15 minutes, but the way the floor plan of your office is such that if it was more efficient, you could squeeze another 1 or 2 appointments in a day. If you didn't have to walk as far from one to the next or stop or this or that, there's companies out there that help you maximize all of that. And it took me a while to grasp it until I thought, all right, well, I save a few minutes, so what? Well, it becomes interesting if you can squeeze another 1 or 2 appointments in there without really compromising anything. And all of a sudden, 2 appointments a day, that's 10 appointments a week. It becomes interesting pretty quickly, pretty quickly. So nice. Any other idea? One question I've got is, how often would you recommend a practice kind of review their spend? Because it's not necessarily the quickest exercise. It's useful.
It's not. I mean, I think the more engaged you are, the less need to really do a deep dive, right? I mean, with all of our clients, we're meeting with all of our private practice owners as little as 4 times a year, 10 times a year, or somewhere in between. And because of that, because we are literally looking at the financials every single month, right? We don't have a need to go through every expense category,
right,
and look at everything, because we're kind of doing that on a kind of a 30,000-foot view, and making sure it's, the trends are trending the right way and not getting out of whack. But I mean, you should be reviewing your fee schedule every year. Are you billing everything that you can bill? Are you billing, are you billing $1,200 for something, but the insurance is willing to pay you $1,300? Well, if your fee schedule says 1,200 and the insurance is willing to pay you 1,300, they're only going to pay you 1,200.
right,
Right. So you need to make sure you review your fee schedules and are billing higher than what the insurance is willing to pay you, at the minimum. And then, down the road, again, it's kind of a side topic, but, for our clients who, at some point looking at getting out of insurance, there's an effective cash flow strategy.
Yeah.
You can stop getting a haircut of 25, 40% of what you're billing out immediately. That's huge.
Yeah.
Will you lose some patients in the process? Probably. But will you lose 25 to 40% of them? Probably not.
Yeah.
So again, on an annual basis, absolutely look at your fee schedule, making sure you're billing what you can bill. Looking at your expenses as your lease, you're really not going to touch that, but until you get kind of closer to the lease terms. Definitely give yourself plenty of advance notice, because the closer you get to the end of your lease, you have zero negotiating power.
Correct.
And the landlords know it. So if you are 2 years out, that's when you absolutely should start looking, because depending on your practice, depending on how worst case scenario you need to move locations, build out could take 10 months. You need as much notice, as much time. And that's just the construction part. That's not even finding a space and negotiating space. So again, giving get at least 2 years before your lease ends to start looking at that. With your buyers, periodically, see if there's any discounts. But at least annually is a general rule of thumb. So look at a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, makes sense. Where would you recommend somebody start? It's a lot. We just covered a lot. Like, just sort of start with your gut, or if somebody hasn't done this, just to kind of get off the starting line, where would you recommend they start?
Well, I mean, it depends on what you're after. If you are looking to find ways to cut costs, there are firms out there that's what they do. Right? They look at what you're spending and, hey, you can cut this. Right? They have you've seen those ads about, hey, are you paying for these subscriptions that you're not even using? I got to charge for my Peloton prescription. I'm like, oops, haven't been using that. I'm going to pause that. Right. So if there's ways to really look at what you're spending, there's third-party companies that will do that for a kind of a commission. And there's I think starting is really just having a true understanding of your financial picture. And getting someone who knows the industry, and this is not necessarily a plug for myself or our firm, but knows what you should be making and what you should be spending. That practice and that specialty. Comparing that to your practice. And if yours is out of whack, then that's when we should start talking, right? We need to do some deeper diving.
I like one about, in addition to that, take a look at your scheduling practices. We talked a lot about this. Is everybody getting scheduled as quickly as they could be before they leave? And if not, why not? But you can't ask that question. Everybody getting of your staff, is everybody getting scheduled as quickly as possible? Because you're probably going to get, The question is, so when Jane Doe is done with this appointment and needs to come back in 6 months, at what point is Jane Doe scheduled for the 6-month appointment? And if the answer is not before Jane Doe leaves, well, then there's an opportunity to make that better. because 6 months is the soonest in this example, but if it's 7 or 8 months, it adds up.
You're just pushing everything.
You just push the money out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the flow. That's the flow part of cash flow. The cash will eventually come in, but it won't flow in as quickly as it could.
Yeah.
When does JDO pay Jane's bill? Is it
Yeah.
at the time of service or afterwards? Why? What would it take? Pick one or two things and start there, and then go from there. Perfect.
And
Oh,
this
go
is
ahead.
kind of a side thing too.
Mhm.
Yeah, another topic of today in my talking with clients, if you are a new patient of a practice and you go to call and make that appointment, that first consult, and they won't be able to see you for 3 months, you won't be their new patient.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So you need to set up your schedule where there is potential open slots for new
Reserve some
patients
slots.
to come
Yeah.
see. Because if you have the ability to come to see a new patient right away, and you provide great service, which no doubt you will, and you are transparent about your fees and you collect a time of service, you are changing that cash flow trajectory for the future.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of it as, I try to do this with our agency, is I want to make buying from us as easy as going to the grocery store. It's about as transparent as it gets. And it's if that's it's hard to get that far, but I find that as, I don't want to be better than any other marketing agent. I just want to be as easy as buying cereal at the grocery store. And you get a long way if you can look for that. So Joe, thank you once again. What a good role here. Every topic is just loaded with good practical tips. So I thank you for coming back on and sharing what you know.
Always happy to help.
Yeah. And you gave us contact info for you. So those are going to go into the show notes for this episode, which is the same for all the other episodes. So if Joe has picked your interest and you want to talk to him, that's another way to find him. Couple of points before we wrap up. First, if you're like Joe or us, you serve private practice owners, you've got some experience that you think others would benefit from, or if you're a private practice owner yourself, you've got same thing. You've figured something out, the business side that you think your peers would benefit from. Either way, why don't you come on Practice Care and tell everybody about it. In Joe's show notes and in every episode show notes, there's a link. Super fast and easy. Just tell us what's on your mind and we'll get you scheduled ASAP. And finally, please subscribe to Practice Care. We're everywhere. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, you name it. New episode drops every week, and that's the easiest way to stay up to date is to subscribe. Thanks very much, and until next time.